Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Gannon, and I will be giving a presentation on radiation safety. This presentation is geared toward new employees at our facility, particularly general radiographers. It also must be understood that this presentation is not a comprehensive radiation safety course. This is a refresher, just so you can be in compliance with our facility's policies and refresh yourself with radiation safety as a whole. Okay, let's get started. What is ionizing radiation? Ionizing radiation is energy sufficient enough to remove an electron from an atom or molecule. So when we take X-rays, these interactions are happening on an atomic level and changing the atomic structures. Those molecular changes are potentially harmful to biological tissue, and they cause cancer. Um, Just to reiterate, X-rays are a form of ionizing radiation, and we use them every day in medical diagnostic imaging to include CAT scan, fluoroscopy, interventional radiology. All of these are modalities that use ionizing radiation. So real quick, deterministic effects versus threshold effects. And deterministic or threshold is basically stuff we can see. We know that a certain level of the radiation dose or exposure is hit, it will cause these things like skin erythema or cataracts. We know that at a certain level, those things will happen and we can observe those. Stochastic or random, on the other hand, is kind of a crapshoot. What that means is that the cancers are random and that they can happen at any level of exposures. However, as that level or dose goes up and those exposure rates increase, the probability of the cancer increases as well. So although the stochastic is random, the probability will increase with the increased exposure. So that's important to know. And how do we measure this radiation dose? We do that in three ways. The first is the absorbed dose. Absorbed dose is the amount of energy deposited by radiation in a mass. The mass can be anything, a piece of wood, rock. It can be a person, but it does not have to be limited to biological tissue. This can be in any kind of mass, and that is expressed in milligrays. The equivalent dose is calculated for individual organs. So this is biological tissue. It is based on the absorbed dose to an organ, adjusted to account for the effectiveness of the type of radiation. Equivalent dose is also expressed in millisieverts. Effective dose. Effective dose is calculated for the whole body. It is the addition of the equivalent doses to all organs, each adjusted to account for the sensitivity of the organ to radiation. Effective dose is expressed in millisieverts, and you'll see that that will kind of go into our regulations for the effective dose. So our dose limits for diagnostic X-ray workers with no other occupational exposure. Um, Effective dose equivalent to the whole body annual, and these are annually, is 5 rems or 0.5 sieverts or 5 millisieverts. And grays and rads can both be kind of converted to the other. That's those SIs are interchangeable or they can be converted. The same with sieverts to rems. Rems can be converted to sieverts and so on. Sieverts is important because these are usually used for regulatory limits, the sieverts and rems. So that is important to know. Okay, what measures do we take to protect ourselves and the public? Here's a big one, Alera. We all know what this is. As low as reasonably achievable. So that means we need to get a diagnostic image, but we are going to give that patient the lowest dose of radiation possible in order to get that image. We don't want to overexpose them. We don't want to take any unnecessary images. We don't want to do anything that's going to increase that exposure if it's not necessary for our diagnostic image. We do that a few ways. We do it with time. We can shorten an exposure, shorten the length of that exposure so they aren't exposed to that field. Distance is another great one for portable radiography. We got to make sure everyone is at least 6 feet away around, and also give them an audible, hey, I'm taking an X-ray before you go ahead and do that. But distance is a really good one in portable radiography. And then of course shielding. In shielding, we use what's called the lead equivalent. 0.5 millimeters lead equivalent should be worn if you are being directly exposed to the beam, or 0.25 millimeter lead equivalent for other shielding, such as the curtains or things that aren't in direct contact with the beam, but they still need to be protected. Okay. Compliance. So this is more of a management thing, not just for the everyday tech, other than if you're doing QC or something like that. So it is everybody's job to kind of keep their own compliance with their registry and their state licensure requirements. Management is also has the responsibility of keeping the equipment and training up to date, and then we are also required to report any concerns, equipment not operating properly. And of course, our department has to comply with state and national regulations. So that just kind of goes without saying, but compliance is something that keeps us and the public safe. One of those ways we do that is with dosimetry. There are many kinds of dosimetry badges, the old film badges, TLDs. I think now they have new digital ones. We're using an optically stimulated dosimeter. There's a picture of one there, and you just wear those on your collar, your outside your shielding during procedures and whenever you're at work. And those are turned in quarterly. A little more on shielding. Shielding should be used by all staff during procedures such as orthopedic surgery, interventional radiology, and fluoroscopic exams. So, for those procedures, all staff that are in the room being exposed to those radiation sources, they need to be fully leaded up. With thyroid shields as well as any nurses or the radiologist, as well as the techs. According to recent research aligned with ARRT, ASRT, and the ACR, patient gonadal shielding should not be used during general radiographic procedures. So facility policies are still kind of take precedence on this, and we have kind of a little gray area at our facility that we're trying to get an actual policy for. But for now, if a patient's guardian or if a patient requests gonadal shielding, we will provide the shielding, but we will also provide them with the patient education. So we will accommodate them if they do want the shielding, but also it is our responsibility to educate them about the recent research regarding um, gonadal shielding and how it creates more scatter radiation, possibly increasing dose. There's just a few pictures here, a few visual aids of lead apron, thyroid shield, and interventional lead equivalent shield. And lastly, patient education is a huge part of keeping everyone safe. And it also reduces the patient's apprehension and anxiety before a radiologic procedure. It's always good to educate them on the other sources of radiation, that we're kind of always around radiation, whether it be cosmic, geographic, or in the food we ate. We are constantly exposed to radiation in a background. It's also good to tell them that the benefits of the procedure outweigh the risks, and that's a whole part of diagnostic imaging. That when a doctor puts in that order, the benefits versus the risks of that have already kind of been taken into account. So that's important for them to know, that we're not just trying to expose them to as much radiation as possible, that we actually have a goal and we have to mitigate risk with that goal. Any other concerns that patients have, it's always good to refer them to the radiation safety officer, who is on the department list, who is on our phone list, on the department phone list, that you can refer them to him. If it's after hours, you can have them come in at a different time if they don't want to do the procedure. But I've had to refer a few people who had a lot more specific questions. It's always good to refer them to the radiation safety officer. Okay, and that is about it. Thank you very much for your time. Again, my name is Matthew Gannon. This has been a presentation on radiation safety for new employees. And if you have any questions, I will address them now, or I will leave my information and you can get with me in the future. Have a good day. Thank you.